Ugh. Ugh. The one time the UFC puts together a decent card and it turns into fucking Bellator. Hello and welcome to TENGRIDOME. This is your host, Iggy. Currently down with the sickness. The UFC 2, what was it? UFC 280? UFC 280 gave me fucking influenza. Alright. Lots of silly bullshit happened on that card. Some of it was less silly, but it was primarily extremely silly, especially given how anticipated the event was and what we got in the end. It's just the ratio is kind of skewed. Okay, so I guess in a progression of lessening this displeasure with the outcomes, I will break down the event. Not gonna break it down in great detail because just like not much interesting was happening in terms of like technique and stuff, but Islam Makhachev versus Chucky Olives, or Chucky Olives versus Islam Makhachev. No asterisks here. Islam beat Chucky fair and square, just completely obliterated him. Looked more comfortable on the feet than Chucky, heavy on top, great improvements overall, and Chucky he didn't look regressed because it's more like his usual defensive liabilities and his usual habits were as present as ever in this fight, and people kind of discounted the possibility of Chucky getting club and subbed, even though it was kind of the most common way by which he lost his previous fights, and everyone kind of assumed that, I think due to the nature of the matchups, it was a flaw that was kind of curtailed, because everyone assumed that it's a flaw that Chucky has been able to address recently, but the guys that he fought weren't really like great submission artists or great club and subbers compared to Islam Makhachev, and so Islam knocked him down and got the arm triangle, and that's it. They kind of tried to hype up, Khabib is trying to hype up the Makhachev-Volkanovski fight, and honestly, like, I am aggressively indifferent to the possibility of that fight happening, because I would at least like Makhachev to get one title win and kind of solidify his reign before getting into all that weight hopping bullshit that usually derails divisions very badly. And also I would like Volkanovski to have some time to settle into 155, put on some mass and get comfortable with the new at the new weight with the added muscle mass and all that stuff. Obviously, it might not matter in the end anyway, because Makhachev is fucking gigantic, and he's also a pressure grappler, and those types kind of tend to give trouble to everyone, irrespective of their skill sets, and which is evident in the Khabib run and the current win by Makhachev. Regardless, if there's any fighter that I trust to come up with a clever game plan and at least give lots of trouble to Makhachev, it's Volkanovski. It's just that give Beneil a title shot. Beneil had a great performance on that card as well. Honestly, it's kind of ridiculous that Beneil has not been given the title shot yet. And the Dustin Chandler fight is probably going to give the winner of that fight another title shot, which is just kind of throws the whole title picture out of whack. Ugh. Give me a second here. This is how I feel about the prospects of Makhachev Volkanovski. It should happen later. Volkanovski is kind of old, getting kind of like putting on years, and has been in numerous tough fights, but I think he still has it in him to knock out a couple other featherweight contenders before getting into it with Makhachev. Anyway, TJ Aljo. TJ Aljo, fucking horrendous. I know that athletic commissions suck anyway, but kind of like, I mean, at least they, I don't know, at least they could have probably checked if TJ's shoulder is still, secured within its fucking socket. Meanwhile, in Abu Dhabi, he was just been allowed to get in there and get, like, basically demolished for a couple rounds with one arm. TJ is a fucking idiot, but if you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough, and tough TJ very much is. Feels bad for kind of, it just kind of diminishes the win, in the sense that Aljo basically beat on a person with one functioning arm for a couple rounds. And it might have happened anyway, had TJ both, if TJ was uninjured, but as it stands now, it's just basically, yeah, Aljo beating up a cripple, essentially. Okay, so the amount of thoughts that I have on Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley is just vastly outweighs the rest of the card, because it's the most controversial outcome and the weirdest outcome and the weirdest fight, I think, on the card. So everyone expected Sean O'Malley to get demolished, basically, and Sean O'Malley overperformed. And Sean O'Malley came in looking great. He looked sharp, vastly better than in some of his previous outings. Sean O'Malley, given his history of injuries and getting, like, breaking his own arms and ribs and feet and legs on his opponents while fighting, kind of meant that everyone expected him to get to basically, like, Petr Yan to kick him in the leg once and just break it in half, which isn't what happened. Instead, what happened was that Petr Yan basically won the fight, and Sean O'Malley got the split decision win of empty volume instead. And one sequence where Petr Yan got wobbled, and after which, I have to add, Petr Yan immediately decked Sean O'Malley with the hardest right hand ever and put him on his ass. So, lots of strange takes circulating around this fight. People who say that this was a robbery and Petr Yan deserved the win because he grappled O'Malley. They're obviously wrong. Grappling doesn't mean anything if you do not score with damage. Takedowns don't mean shit. It's not the grappling that won Petr Yan the fight, it's the vastly more impactful punches that he landed. And Sean O'Malley, as much volume as he threw, most of it were just kind of glancing blows of Petr Yan's guard off his forehead. Yeah, everyone's pointing to stats, and it's been, I've said this many times before. I've said this a million times before. Fight metric means dick. Doesn't mean anything. It's just two guys, like, counting anything that they deem to be a connection, and they usually can't tell a glancing jab from also significant strikes. The significant strike percentage, the stat, it doesn't actually count significant strikes in the sense that they're the most impactful punches. It's just any punches any strikes that landed on the feet. And a jab also counts as a significant strike, even a glancing jab. Meanwhile, I don't want to get too much into it. It's statistics. It's something that we evaluated many times before on TENGRIDOME and elsewhere under the Fight Site umbrella. So basically, what happened? The way I see it is that just Petr Yan kind of showed up with the same game plan that he utilized against Sandhagen, and just executed it worse. He just kind of treated O'Malley unseriously. He treated him as an unserious threat. Didn't take him, didn't like deem him to be a big enough threat to just kind of employ his skill set to the fullest, and kind of tried to do the same thing he did against Sandy, which is just hand fight, kicks off stance switches, and a strange emphasis on grappling. And it's just like Petr Yan, I would describe him as having this sort of like Soviet amateur boxing-esque mentality of, I'm gonna showcase my entire skill set over the course of this fight. In this round I'm gonna do this, in this round I'm gonna do that, and in this particular fight I want to show off skill set X, or skill set Y, or skill set Z. And so for this fight, in the pre-fight interview, he talked about how he's a more complete martial artist, and hence why he decided to put this much focus on grappling, on offensive grappling, I presume. But Petr Yan is not very good at offensive grappling. It's just, it's not even it's not even his B game. His A game is obviously pressure and striking, striking at range, and his B game is like the transitions, or maybe like it kind of blurs a little bit. He's been putting more focus on transitions in a lot of his fights. Anyway, semantics. So it's kind of like almost looked like Petr Yan expected to just find these fight-defining moments where he would just deck O'Malley and put him on his ass, and these moments would decide the fight in his favor. Which, well, first of all, it puts a lot of stock. It puts a lot of stock in the ability of the judges to recognize what you're doing, which doesn't happen often. Second of all, it's putting up a lot more to chance, because in the prior fights, like for example against Jimmy Rivera and against Sandhagen, what got him these big fight-defining moments is his ability to use his subtle ringcraft and intercepting strikes and subtle stance switches and feints, and using all these subtle things together to get the opponent moving where he wanted them to move and decking them with an intercepting strike. And against O'Malley, he just kind of sort of swung for the breeches. Breeches? Bleachers. He swung for the bleachers. He just kind of like went, and started doing these big, shifty, winging clotheslines or hooks or whatever the fuck. Whereas he would use these swings, but he used them with purpose. There was purpose behind them. I guess, like, for example, Jose Aldo, he used a very wide right hook, that left Aldo's field of vision and looped around the guard, hit him in the temple. Against Sandhagen, the spinning shit always was set up by direction feints. Against Rivera, the shifting strikes were predicated by ringcraft and using the threat of moving one way to get Rivera moving the other way and intercepting with a shifting strike. It's a problem that was also evident in the second Alger fight, where he would just kind of sort of just swing and bank on the shifting combinations to be able to find his connections, and that's just not reliable. And the excuse of Petr Yan is obviously a 5-round fighter. It kind of doesn't work very well, because as an elite fighter, as a fighter of Petr Yan's caliber, you should be able to win 3 rounders just as convincingly as 5 rounders simply by utilizing more safety leads, taking the initiative, attacking more often. And Petr Yan did none of that. He just kind of like, he grappled for unreasonably long stretches of the fight. All his prior defensive liabilities were more present than ever, which is his love of eating knees, which got him very badly cut and affected the optics of the fight in O'Malley's favor, vastly in O'Malley's favor, because Petr Yan was bloodied and swinging. And just the inability to kind of like pass the legs of O'Malley, Petr Yan is just not a very good guard passer, I'd say. He has very good ground and pound, and I think that's what he banked on, but he kind of like rushed through the motions, didn't establish a base from which he could throw, and O'Malley was able to slide in knee shields and just kind of like interrupt and logjam Petr Yan's attempts at landing ground and pound. Meanwhile, Sean O'Malley he showed more discipline on the back foot compared to his previous outings, and especially compared to the Chris Moutinho fight, which is when Sean O'Malley was basically given a layup in that fight. Chris Moutinho is not good at all, and despite that, Moutinho was able to find lots of success, and it was frankly an embarrassing performance. But yeah, in this one, didn't actually like ran himself backwards to defense like he did against certain against Moutinho, and utilized more pivoting and off-angle strikes to land his offense. Obviously, he didn't land all that clean and all that often, but at least the empty volume, I guess, gave him the optics of kind of outboxing, quote-unquote, Petr Yan. Landed a very nice right hand off, while moving, just kind of an off-angle right hand, which hurt Petr Yan. I mean, obviously, Petr Yan just landed much harder and hurt Sean O'Malley even worse immediately afterwards, but there were some nice sequences. I'd say, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the Yair Rodriguez fight versus Max Holloway. Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez, where Rodriguez overperformed and was able to not hurt, but kind of like beat up Max Holloway on entry, despite getting his ass kicked regardless. And it caused a lot of people to just kind of like go, oh, Yair Rodriguez nearly beat Max Holloway, deserved the fight, close fight, yada yada yada. And I saw lots of people talking about how this fight was not a robbery and the decision was not a robbery, and how because the fight was close and allegedly it could go either way. But just to kind of like clarify things a little bit, I think a fight can be close, but also have a clear winner. Therefore, making certain decisions a robbery, which is something that gets lost in the decision discourse a lot of the time. People just kind of get hung up on the idea of fights being competitive or close. Like, for reference, a fight can be competitive but not close. Like, for example, Volkanovski-Holloway 1, or arguably Volkanovski-Holloway 3, because Max was still coming up with good ideas and finding moments of success. It was competitive. Max was still in the game, but Volkanovski still beat him clearly. And in here, the fight, it was arguably close purely because of the optics, not because of the actual strikes landed. But it had a clear winner in Petr Yan, in my opinion, and therefore the decision is still a robbery. I've also I've got into kind of like a very indirect conflict with Kyle McLachlan again by posting my immediate post-fight thoughts from the Fight Side account, and it kind of prompted Kyle to talk about moving the goalposts and talking about how, so is it Petr Yan having a bad performance now, or is it a robbery? Was the fight a robbery, or did Yan have a bad performance? And my answer is both are true. Petr Yan had a bad performance, which cost him the optics of the fight, but it was still also a robbery because Petr Yan clearly landed the much more impactful shots. And so, according to the scoring criteria, Petr Yan won the fight, but some of the judges gave the swing rounds to O'Malley, and other judges gave the clearly Yan rounds to O'Malley, and it's just ridiculous, really. As to the response from the fans, I would say, I mean, I'm generally I've been, ever since I got banned off MMA Twitter, it's been kind of like a blessing in disguise. I could no longer talk to some of the people that I'd like talking to on there, but on the other hand, I was not exposed to the general toxicity of the community. But I kind of got a glimpse into it briefly. And lots of people are just being dramatic, and I wish that, I mean, it's obviously going to be the case, but I wish fight fans stopped being so, I don't know, jumping to these big, broad conclusions and just make these leaps of logic. Like, Petr Yan was never as good as everyone talked about him. He's doesn't belong in the top 10 pound for pound. Overhyped bum, and the other parties like Sean O'Malley is top 3 because he clearly beat Petr Yan. And it's just like, come on, just calm down. And I kind of think that some of these opinions are predicated on people's dislike of Petr Yan dick riders and Sean O'Malley dick riders, and so these groups of people sort of clash, and it's just extremely annoying to interact with them. And I get that, but it's still that's not something you should be basing your analysis off of, or at least as a fight analyst, I kind of, like me personally, I try to distance myself from that and avoid letting the annoyances that I encounter on social media affect my analysis. So in this case, what I would suggest is that I would caution people against reading too much into this fight because, well, first of all, styles, they fucking make fights. Sean O'Malley is a rangy, powerful striker, and that is much taller and rangier than Petr Yan, and Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley relies a lot on volume, and Petr Yan is just kind of more of this type of guy that kind of punishes your attempts to land volume, and so he looks for these big fight-defining moments, which this kind of leads to this weird interplay of styles. And generally speaking, I would not even think that O'Malley, what was surprising is O'Malley's durability, obviously, like his chin durability, not his like overall, bone density or stuff like that. But kind of like, it was like a combination of Petr Yan fighting a bad fight and Sean O'Malley being kind of like an awkward matchup, kind of like the way Sandhagen was, but Petr Yan was able to navigate that matchup much more clearly because he prepared well and he stuck to a very clever game plan and utilized disciplined tactics, which he did not utilize in this fight. In the meantime, there are really no guys like Petr Yan at the top of the division. Well, Chito Vera is kind of similar stylistically to Petr Yan, but also the Chito Vera low volume approach has been predicated on the matchups that he has been facing, because he was facing like the just psychotic swarmer in Rob Font, and the master of smoke and mirrors in Dominic Cruz, so he just looked for these big narrative-defining moments of the fights and big finishes, big knockdowns. And usually Chito Vera actually employs a lot more volume, more front kicks, more elbows in the clinch, more clinch work in general. Sandhagen, obviously, kind of like in a broadly similar mold to Sean O'Malley, so he offers very volume heavy, very nuanced striking at range. Arguably less powerful than O'Malley, but also, I would say, more well-rounded as a striker, perhaps, and somewhat better at ringcraft. Kind of like also psychotically durable. Who else is there? Well, Aljo, obviously a rough matchup for O'Malley, I think. Obviously on the feet, he's still kind of awkward, still a bit herky-jerky at times, but just his sprint grappling and the ability to just get to these positions. I think that's a very scary matchup for O'Malley if he gets the title shot. Yeah, generally speaking, like the whole bantamweight title picture is like very strange right now. Sean O'Malley overperformed, got the decision, and so he goes up in the rankings. And so what? Does Aljo fight Chito Vera? But Song Yadong is also there, climbing the rankings. Oh wait, no. Song Yadong recently lost to Cory Sandhagen via nasty card stoppage, but Cory Sandhagen also fought Aljo before and got smashed, and doesn't seem like his grappling like made that much of an improvement to just solidify his case for a title shot. It's just so weird. Like, what do we do now? So Petr Yan's road to the rematch with Aljo has been derailed. So does Aljamain Sterling fight Sean O'Malley of a robbery while also having smashed a TJ with no arms? What is this? This is a completely nonsensical title picture. And I mean, I guess it's nothing new for bantamweight because bantamweight has historically has been cursed with a completely chaotic, completely ridiculous title picture anyway. It's just that it kind of like seems completely egregious, even by bantamweight standards. And there's also one thing I wanted to touch upon, which is just the attitude that people exposed to Yan fans have developed, which is just like Yan fans kind of act like he can do no wrong. He's just this, oh, he's so evil and he's a violence gremlin. I love how like nasty he is and what a piece of shit he is. Yada yada yada. And oh, best fighter in the world. Usual Dick Rider bullshit, but it also caused this like reaction out of people where just people just kind of actively wish him to lose purely because the fans are annoying, and it happens. It happened to a bunch of fighters. I saw that happen before. Tony Ferguson is one unfortunate example where his fans got annoying, and so everyone just kind of like there was a group of people that actively wished him to lose, and in retrospect, it just seems just kind of like ill-conceived, just because the fall-off for Tony has been so sad and so depressing, and this just unwarranted hatred caused purely by how annoying the fans are just seems, it just seems ill-conceived. Meanwhile, like I honestly wonder how the war has affected Petr Yan and his training situation in his corner, because I mean, let me tell you, for these past 7 months, I have not been having a good time. It's massively affected my like mental and physical well-being in very different, like in a multitude of different ways, and also, I can distinctly remember Petryan posting, like, indirectly alluding to the idea that maybe we should, like, have peace. And he kind of, obviously it's a safe position, but it's also a very unsafe position if you're a Russian citizen right now. Because people are being arrested for simply saying that war is bad and maybe we should have less war. This is like the controversial position right now, and it is deemed anti-patriotic in Russia. It's something you can get arrested for. And like beyond that, lots of like my relatives are in danger, and lots of like my friends are in danger. Lots of my friends have also fled the country and have been put into very unpleasant positions due to the recent events. Beyond that, there's also the fact that the mobilization is ongoing, and to provide, I've also talked about this before, but Russia is currently like mobilizing people from remote regions, and regions like places where Petryan grew up and where I grew up personally as well, like Siberia. To provide a good recent example, is there's the mobilization drive in the Republic of Altai. 90% of all mobilized personnel from the Altai Republic are ethnically Altai people. For reference, the Altai people make up for 33% of the population of the Republic, with the other 56% being Russians, and the rest being classified as quote-unquote others. Said quote-unquote others are also being mobilized en masse, indigenous Siberians with population numbering in low thousands or even hundreds. Like, for example, the Chilim people, of which there are like maybe 300 people left, and a lot of them got mobilized anyway, which is just, I mean, it's ethnic cleansing is what it is. And Petryan himself is... obviously I'm going beyond the scope of just MMA, maybe engaging in some armchair psychology, but I kind of feel for him regardless. And maybe that can retroactively explain some of my biases and kind of like invalidate my thoughts on the fight. But yeah, okay. I'm biased in favor of Petryan because I like his style, and I can sympathize with some of the experiences growing up, because he obviously carries himself as a person with a chip on his shoulder. And this chip on his shoulder has been developed because he's like a mixed race person living in one of the most racist countries in the world. And the way he strongly, overwhelmingly identifies with his Slavic identity is an example of him trying to sort of like employ this survivor mimicry in order to not get bullied anymore for his last name and for his looks, and any other number of things for which mixed race people are derided in Russia. I don't know. It's just he's been given just a rough hand, and like from not having his corner in the Alger fight, and like the tables being turned on him, and his current like technical regression against Sean O'Malley. I don't know. Maybe he's not. Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's some behind the scenes stuff that's happening that we don't know of. Anyway, that's all speculation. Might be completely untrue and bear no weight on the fight itself. If you wish to discard everything I've said right now, that's your right. I wouldn't fault you for doing that. But like the name stuff, like personally, I came up with Iggy as a pen name because it wasn't a pen name initially. It was just it was a second name that I came up with myself in order to use it in everyday life, because I was embarrassed of using my actual given name, which is like a traditional Mongolian name. Now it's the other way around. Now it's, not the other way around. Now Iggy is just it's just a nickname on the internet. I'm no longer embarrassed of my real given name. And I've been able to move past all that internalized racism, that gets developed in ethnic minorities and all across the world, I guess. Anyway, moving on. Beneil Dariush had a great performance. Fought Mateusz Gamrot, the gamer. Lots of really cool grappling sequences in that fight, and a gigantic, just absolutely massive knockdown by Beneil Dariush against Gamrot. Just floored him. It kind of never hit me before, but watching the pre-fight promotion package that they prepared for Beneil Dariush, the man has the most psychotic highlight reel, amongst any lightweight. It's ridiculous. It's insane. Just each and every moment is just horrendously violent, and it's very funny. Beneil Dariush also spoke out about the recent struggles of the Iranian people, which was it was a nice moment. Use your platform and all that. It's just that either the balls or the weird cultural insensitivity and on parts of Beneil Dariush to just talk about Jesus Christ and his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and how he's gonna, if you're gonna go against his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, he's gonna get you. It's just very strange. Manon Fiorbo versus Kate. Oh, for fuck's sake. Bilal Muhammad had a good performance against Sean Brady. Sean Brady kind of one note, just the left hook and nothing else, even though that left hook has been landing for him throughout the fight. Basically every single left hook that Sean Brady threw connected. But it just wasn't enough. Beneil, meanwhile, kind of stuck to his guns and utilized his striking to get the finish, and showcased really good finishing instincts and really good shot selection on the finish. Like the way that he would throw the jab, then the overhand, and then immediately throw the uppercut after the overhand, and then an overhand after the uppercut. It's just clever guard manipulation. It's really good stuff. As for the rest of the cards, it wasn't great. Nothing interesting happening on that card. Most stacked card of the year, my fucking ass. I mean, just overall, the event was just kind of a disappointment. And to add insult to injury, it also happened on the night of my fucking 27th birthday, and this is the shit I got. It's just... Like, I wouldn't lie. Everyone who I've been rooting for basically lost, except Benny and I guess Bilal. Even though I wasn't rooting for Bilal, but I guess it was a nice performance. But everything else is just a complete shit show. Jeez. To the point where I didn't even want to record anything about this event, because I've had a lot of thoughts, but these thoughts kind of depressed me. But now I kind of I pulled myself together by... I got the bootstraps and pulled myself up by the bootstraps and recorded this podcast while being horrendously ill with a massive sinus infection. Yay me. Obviously, I could go into more. I could go more in depth and the stuff that I maybe forgot to touch upon, because it's just my brains are scrambled right now. But if I remember anything, maybe I'll just write a follow-up post or something. Also, even though I have not been on Twitter for a while now because I got permabanned, I also have a new account. Just stay quiet about it. Don't tell anyone that it's me. But maybe I'll start posting there again. The usual stuff. It's like some certain quick analysis, quick thoughts, jokes, and sometimes the odd sentimental thread about whatever the fuck. What else is there? We got news. Oh yeah, the fucking the commissions. The commission price list is going to be published soon, maybe like in the next couple of weeks, and you'll be able to make commissions. Finally, it's a project that I've long wished to roll out for the website. Basically, the idea goes like, instead of subscribing to our Patreon and getting like at a high tier and expecting benefits that we may not be able to fulfill due to the intensity of the schedule, or just like scheduling conflicts and stuff like real life bullshit, you just pay us a flat fee and pick a staff member of your preference, and we'll knock it out by the end of the month. That's it. Feels like a much more realistic and fair arrangement. It will be, you will be able to request alternate commentaries, podcasts, stuff like resume reviews, or like decision evaluations, like in the vein of the Ed Gallo series Bad Calls, stuff like that. We want to bring this back. If you shell out the big bucks, we might also write an entire article for you, or even make an edited video breakdown with voiceover and fancy graphics and everything, and all that good stuff. Anyway, in other good news, I've been finally reunited with my wife, who has been away in South Korea trying to make some money. And now all we have to do is just wait until our attorneys come up with a plan on how we're gonna present our petition to the US government in order to get a visa. Who knows? Maybe we'll be in the US by Christmas. Well, now I've cursed it, and I've shed it. By the time we get our visa, World War II is going to break out, and China is going to invade Taiwan, and Russia is going to launch nukes or something. Anyway, fucking hell. Before I keel over dead, I guess I'm just going to end this. Sorry for the perhaps an unpleasant listen due to my current state, but I hope you enjoyed the thoughts. If there was anything interesting or anything you might wish to discuss some more, you can always join our Patreon and join our Discord, and I'll gladly address any feedback that you might have. Anyway, this has been TENGRIDOME, your host Iggy. Hopefully I'll still be alive by next week. Cheers. Thank you for listening.